everyone, it is Kev from Invicta Media, and I have a very special guest today. I am here with Jake from Rivers of Nihil. Jake, how does today find yourself, sir? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing, Kevin?
Yeah, not too bad. It's pretty late here, but it's all good because I get to come and hang out with you for an hour or so. So that's
Uh,
a good reason to stay up late on a Thursday night.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you for having me.
No,
Honored to be here.
it's absolutely my pleasure. Yeah, absolutely my pleasure. So we're chatting to you today about your excellent new album, The Work. We're going to sort of talk about the process of writing the record, of recording it, sort of the themes that run throughout. But kind of what I wanted to start with is that Rivers seem to be, from where I'm sitting anyway, your band seems to have become the first name in this sort of brand of progressive technical death metal, for want of a better term. It's incredibly limiting to put that label on it, I think, because you do so much more. But I think that with the last record and with the touring cycle, you guys have become the benchmark for that. Like, how does that sit with you? Do you kind of see that with yourselves, or do you not really think about that kind of thing?
I think these are aspects of the dream that we kind of had preliminary. We had these preliminary thoughts in mind. They weren't the motive, but we knew kind of in a way what we wanted to do with this music, and maybe perhaps we had an idea what kind of effect it would have, on the listeners. And it's fair to say that we were able to maybe see the potential outcome of what this record would do, and maybe where it would fit, where we would fit. And it's still a process that's unfolding. We're not 100% sure that it worked,
Yeah.
but we're pretty confident. We're pretty confident that we're doing the right thing, and we think a lot of other people will feel the same way. And we're grateful to be at any place, in this community, at all. But it certainly feels like we're kind of we're living up to the expectations that we carry for ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that the expectations that your fan base have for you as well, because that last record sort of really pushed you, especially over here in the UK anyway, speaking, I think we saw the name Rivers of Nihil around a lot more, and you toured over here more on that last record. So do you feel that momentum has allowed you to push into further experimentation coming into this new one with everything from the last touring cycle?
That's a really good question. Oftentimes it's not until you get a band out on the road and they're actually touring the material and you get to see the real in-person reaction, not just like following, what's happening online and, stuff like that, which is great too, which is absolutely great. But it's not until like you get to the live show and you're there with your fans and the people in the crowd to really see what you've created and its effects. So I would say certainly yes. I mean, like we touring, we did tour quite a little bit over there in Europe, on the last record, and it was all the more validating and reassuring. That headliner we did was a great success, and a success that I think was parallel to the effect it had on the fans and the participants, and equally to us as musicians. And we it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing in a way that like we realize we have to keep going with this.
Course,
we want to keep making this that way.
Yeah, you got to keep it rolling, especially when you're sort of firing on all cylinders as you guys were. Because I mean, I saw you twice on that run, and both times, like you could just tell that it was a band that were actually like, yeah, we're fucking here now, and this is what we're doing. So it's really cool to kind of see how that's moved on. I mean, obviously, I don't want to linger too much on the whole COVID situation. I'm not going to be one of those that asks loads of questions, but sort of
Okay.
from a perspective that I'm looking at, it kind of seemed that it came at a really weird serendipitous time for you guys, right? Because you were in the process of writing the work, which we'll start to go into. And so maybe that time away from the sort of the luxury of touring, almost not so much a luxury, but the hardships and the work of touring gave you that time to really put into the record. Like, how much do you agree with that, or do you feel that it's just one of those situations that happened?
You know, that's a good question, because I oftentimes like bring up how it happened at a perfect timing. Like, I mean, impeccable timing. Like, we already had plans after the last European tour to take the next 2 years off to finish writing the record without knowing anything that was going to happen in the world at that point in time. So it's like, in a weird way, you know, like, it's like the composition of the world complemented the already preconceived efforts, the preliminary efforts and ideas that we had set in you know, precursor stone for what we wanted to do with this, with writing this record, and the time spent doing it. You know, I remember coming home from that European tour, and we're like, all right, that's the last tour of you know, we're out of domain name for now. You know, we're gonna work on, you know, we all talking about this. We're all gonna work on the next record. And you know, it wasn't, I believe it was March, right before St. Patrick's Day here in the United States, that everything shut down.
Yeah.
You know, and there was a lot of other things that kind of happened that way, more in my personal life than necessarily correlated with the band. Like, I landed a job landscaping. And I've never done that work before. I came back from Europe, and I was like, I got to get another job that's not just doing security at a bar. You know, I wanted to do something else, and not realizing that all of that, the whole industry was going to shut down anyways. Another thing. So it's, yeah, there was perfect timing. It was a perfect timing with things, and it really kind of gave us this like, all right, this is perfect territorial space setting to sit at home and write a record. You know what I mean? Like, the world's on fire. You know what I mean? Like, let's
on fire. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like let's put our hearts and passion into this writing process. You know.
Yeah. So what I was going to say, in terms of actually then writing the record, I mean, with you, like we're saying, you're in the kind of perfect space, but how would you usually go about writing? Is it one of those things where you sit down in a room together and hash out ideas, or is it more of a case of one member has parts that then sends to everybody else, and that kind of works anyway because you're all working remotely?
It is more in line with the second. You know, Brody wrote the majority of the music. And the rest of us kind of, you know, we sit we sit in, you know, with what is being written, and we are reviewing it ourselves, and we're giving feedback. So it is, there's a few of us who are writing, and then there is the rest of us who are like precipitating the creative process and kind of like marinating it, and maybe putting our thoughts out there, you know, into the ether. And we're all kind of aware of each other and aware of each other's thoughts to some degree when we're in the writing process, whether we're communicating about it or not. You know, and I think that's another interesting thing too that happens with us, is like, you know, the things that we actually write and come up with, you know, and the things that we're thinking about before we hear them. You know, it's hard to kind of like lay my finger on one particular example of that, but we it's definitely has happened with us for sure. You know, it
all feels incredibly natural as well. Like, the progression throughout your records and the way that the songs unfold feel like they have this really, even though it lives in a very technical space, it's got a very human quality. And I think that that's something that maybe your voice brings. And maybe that stuff that Adam does with his lyrics, and, you know, when he's writing lyrics. But I think there's a very natural way that you guys tend to lay out a record. And that process that you have described there kind of lends itself to that a little bit, because you're working with an idea. It might not be in the same space, but you're getting it and you're processing it, and then you're going, okay, I see how I fit into this. And then it's more of layering rather than sitting and changing little things. Is that kind of, am I hitting the right levels there?
Yeah. So you're definitely hitting the right kind of the right kind of direction. Although like it is open to change. Like when you know like we all communicate about things and whether we like them or not, and you know we're all honest with each other, and some a lot of times things do get retweaked. Not everything is written first take, and it's you know, as much as that would be sick as fuck, you know, to write first take, everyone likes it, that's it. But no, it's definitely a process of getting feedback, and depending upon that feedback, and you know, sitting with that idea, walking away from it, coming back to it, and seeing how it fits later on too. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Of course, and as something as like, let's like get into the work itself. When I first heard it, I was like, this is very different. It's still very much the same band, but it's very, very different and incredibly ambitious. So something this ambitious obviously has to have that give and pull a little bit. How much did you guys sit prior to writing anything and going, right, we seem to have hit this level with what we were doing before, now we really want to push the boundaries? Like, was that an actual conversation that you had together, or is it again just something that's happened naturally from you guys being in a band together for so long?
Yeah, it's definitely something we've talked about, you know, for sure. Like I remember, you know, like coming off of some of the headlining tours that we did for Where Else Knows My Name, and you know, the reactions that people have got with that record, and then kind of like looking in the future and thinking about what winter would be like for us, and kind of having a vague, you know, resolution of what that album was going to be. You know, there was definitely a lot of ideas and themes, and as far as like musical themes and the sound of the album and different elements that maybe we wanted to keep or bring back or add in that maybe weren't there before. And I think a lot of that happened as a result of knowing that we'd done it before with Where Else Know My Name. So yeah, it's something that we had a conversation about, talked about it back and forth, bounced ideas off each other, and then, you know, dive into the creative process, you know, and we waited to see what came up, and then worked with it on that level. You know,
it's striking to me that it feels very much like with Where Else, it was almost kind of a complete formation of the band that you were at that point, and this feels very much like a new chapter. Like, how does that feel to you? Does it feel like like the beginning of something new for you guys, or is it very much you still feel like you're continuing on where you were at the end of that first 3 record run?
You know, it definitely feels new. It feels new because there's a lot of, just like, you know, how new yet kind of, you know, kind of having certain elements that Monarchy had, how new Where Else Know My Name was. It's very similar for how the work is with that record. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that like Where Else Know My Name didn't have, and we feel we definitely can sit in that space, that musical space that, you know, we've created, and be like, wow, this feels different. And I think we've all have kind of agreed on that. And yet it has things that clearly remind you or have aspects of the previous record there, you know, for sure. But it definitely feels like we're moving forward and new, like a broader creativity territory, you know, that maybe Where Else Know My Name didn't get to before.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and another thing too, it's like I think when we think about the progression of how the music is unfolding from one album to the next, sometimes we oftentimes think about it in terms of like, oh, is this album more progressive than the last one, just in terms of musical, evolution from one album to the next. But I kind of like the process I see it is like we see the theme of the album like winter, and we hold that in our headspace, and we try to imagine what that would sound like if we created that. And I think the goal is to be able to extract that kind of visionary, assessment of what that world would be in the Rivers of Nihil, creation, metal and with the elements. So yeah, I don't know if that was
no, I get you. It's very much
I
get what you're saying. It's very much taking that theme and putting your own, how does that project through your own lens as a band and your own sound. And even though you're progressing it, you listen to it and you still go, this is a Rivers of Nihil record. Like there's no, even though I'm saying it's quite different, it's still very much yourselves, because you've got such a unique identity, which kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, that I think that you have become the benchmark for this kind of pocket of the metal scene in particular. Sort of what I wanted to go into next is the title. I think the title of the record, it took a lot of people by surprise, me included, because it seemed so like blunt in a sense, like just the work. And it's like, well, that could be open to interpretation. And I think that maybe everyone in the band might have a different interpretation. I mean, I've read the press release, so I know what Adam says about it, but just for people who may not understand, like, what does the record title mean to you, with the sense of how the theme runs throughout the new record?
It's what at first when I first heard the idea of calling the album The Work, and I know how I sometimes I need to sit with the idea a little bit before I fully comprehend it and go, oh, that's what it means. You know what I mean? And that happened, of course, with it, because I kind of thought it was a little blunt, and I was like, oh, you know what? Let me just sit with this and see how this feels. And then it's when it finally hit me in the most humble, I guess, kind of way, or I say humble, not humble. What I'm trying to say is like it represents something that I purely thought was a genius idea. The work is short, sounds blunt, and it could be very two-dimensional when we think of what it means to us and on a personal level, having that be the title of our new album. But in a way, it's like I also see it as like it's the process of initiation, the process of getting things done, and life in a lot of ways is the work. To be able to do things and to give it your all, and not looking at it work isn't like, oh, I have to go to work, or oh, this is work, but no, like the commitment and the getting up, and I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna do this, and like that kind of idea and relationship to it. And then at that point, what is titled The Work becomes an art of work, and then the composition of how that word settles inside my mind, inside my body, and inside my heart, really has a whole different meaning that wasn't there before. Because now I attach it with like, oh, there's a really deep meaning to this now. This is not just about doing something that feels like, it's like something that we don't want to do, or something that's a constant uphill battle. I mean, yes, it may be, but there's now a part of me there with it that like is passionately driven by it, And I think that title is kind of like a mantra, in its own sense, for many things, outside of what the theme of this album represents, but for different areas of our lives. You know what I mean? Like when we're going through something, we know we have a long journey ahead of us. and we have to stay committed to ourselves and to that thing. It's time to put in, I don't want to sound corny, but it's like, putting in time to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that work is like saying it's the work is like an unspoken understanding of what kind of commitment, is about to unfold for whatever it is that person is doing or we're doing as a band. You know what I mean? With this process,
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can totally see the mantra element. I mean, there's forgive me, I've forgotten the song title, but there's that glorious moment sort of towards the back end where there's like the gang vocals just with that do the work over and over and over again. And I think that's one of the really like it's powerful and beautiful moments of the record. And it almost feels like you are saying it not only to the listener and to the audience, but to everybody else as well, and to yourselves as a constant reminder to just put in, and whatever you put in, you'll hopefully get back out, whatever that means.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's in some way it's insinuating that it's not so much, the end product that's really, the prize. It's actually the work, being there, and maybe it'll get done, maybe it won't. But if it, it's, yeah.
Yeah,
I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've been incredibly gracious with your time, so I'll start to wrap up for now. Obviously, you've got touring plans to go along with this. Hopefully, the world doesn't shut down again and derail those. So sort of what does the next 12 months hopefully look like for you guys? Because obviously you were supposed to be coming over here, I think, for Arctangent Festival that got cancelled because everything, the global bastard, as people call it. So what does the next 12 months hopefully look like for you guys?
Oh, well, I mean, hopefully it's, like we have this Black Dahlia Murder tour with After the Burial, Carnifex. That's going to be United States, and it's going to go to Canada. And then outside of that, the only other tour we had lined up was the one that we were coming to Europe for. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I mean, outside of that, we're still building this, this touring process.
Mm-hmm.
And so we really have to see where the world's going, I think, in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But before I can actually say where the rest of this year is going.
Sure,
but hopefully it's going somewhere where we can be on the road and be sharing this music and this work, this art with everybody.
Absolutely.
We can, yeah.
And I imagine, knowing you guys, you've got something special lined up for those live shows to sort of bring this new record into that space, to allow it to sort of breathe a new life almost, not just listening to it either, whether they buy it on vinyl or whatever, but in that live environment. I've seen you enough to know that you're going to do something that will be special.
That we definitely hope for like headliners and tours of that level, that we were going to bring a little bit more to the table than just us standing on stage playing the album. So 100%. Yeah, that's the goal.
Excellent.
Hopefully it'll happen.
Well, Jake, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much for giving me half an hour of your time this evening. I'm just gonna let you have the end of it here to promote yourself, promote everything else, and basically plug the work.
Thank you, Kevin. Just really excited to get out on the road, and I know we all are. We're all excited to be out there and to see all you guys, and to promote this album, and to just really celebrate music, and go back to what's really important for all of us to appreciate this lifestyle, and just kind of this whole thing. So, you know, we really look forward to that, and hopefully everyone's out there staying healthy and safe. And, you know, we just hope for the best, and we hope to all see you all soon, you know. Thank you, Kevin, so much.
Excellent, man. Excellent. And to everybody watching or listening, wherever you're watching and listening, the work is out on the 23rd of September via Metal Blade Records. Pick it up with hands and buy it with money, because that would be greatly appreciated by those guys. Jake, thank you very much. Look after yourself.
Thank you, Kevin.